Good afternoon, fellow Canadians. My name is Michael Clark, and I am today announcing that I am putting in my candidacy to run for the Liberal Party of Canada leadership. I'm very excited for this moment. I wanted to take a chance to share with Canadians a little about myself and a little about what I would do if I did become the Liberal Party leader of Canada and the next Prime Minister. So, one of the reasons I put my name in for this is because when I was growing up in Canada, we were always told that Canada is the best country in the world to live in. But something's gone wrong, and that is just not the case anymore. I've seen the polls, we've all seen the polls, and things are not going very well for the Liberal Party at this moment. And I believe that we need to take drastic measures to restore this amazing brand, to restore the Liberal Party to a respectable place in this country. What I believe is that the adults need to come back to the table in the Liberal Party of Canada and in this country. What I believe needs to happen, first of all, in the Liberal Party is we need to return to the center. We're supposed to be a centrist party. We've gone alt-left, followed this, as some say, this wacko agenda of wokeism. And I don't believe deep down that is the values of the Liberal Party of Canada or the people of Canada. We need to return to the center. We are seeing all over the world this alt-left agenda being dropped and dismissed. We're seeing companies get rid of their DEI programs and their woke policies. We all witnessed yesterday what happened in the United States of America. And that is happening all over the world in countries like Germany, France, Austria, Hungary, Argentina. The people are all realizing the problems with this philosophy, and they are shifting back to the center or the right. So what I want to say, first of all, to Canadians is, on behalf of the Liberal Party of Canada, on behalf of all of us, we want to apologize. We apologize for what we've done in the country to this point and why everyone is jumping ship like rats on a ship that's on fire. We have the polls show that Liberals are leaving to go vote for other parties. Our own MPs are publicly voicing their displeasure, and the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada even left the leadership. So I want to apologize on behalf of all of the Liberal Party for what is going on in our country. That's the step one. Next, I would say that what is the Liberal Party supposed to be? We are supposed to be a centrist party. So what is that to people who don't understand political lingo? Well, shouldn't it be a party that takes the best ideas from the left and from the right and from the other parties? If we look at it, let's examine it for a second. You know, we don't need to be at war with all of the other parties. These are our neighbors on our street. There's people in our own families that see things differently on how this country should run. So I propose something better. I propose a way forward where we try to work together more. Let's go through the parties. Look at the Conservative Party. They have great ideas. They are fiscally responsible, and they're demanding accountability. That's great. We look at the NDP. They have great ideas. What are they about deep down? They're about taking care of the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed in our society. They're supposed to be for the workers. And they propose great ideas. let's have a national conversation on what should we do with the elderly? Should we help them with dental care? That is a great idea. We look at the Green Party. I like what they stand for. Take good care of the environment, take good care of the earth. And then we look at the PPC. Thank goodness that they are around. Where would Canada be right now if they weren't fighting for the rights of Canadians? I respect what they've done a lot. And that's what the Liberal Party of Canada is supposed to do. Take the best of all of the parties, all the best values, and be in the middle. Now, let's talk about some of the other leaders that are running in the race. One of the reasons I put my name in is I just don't like the choices that have come forward, and I don't think other Canadians have as well. You have Mr. Carney, who really is representing the interests of the globalists, and then we have Mrs. Freeland, who really is just going to be following in the same policies that got us into this mess to begin with. I believe in Canada, we need to re-examine ourselves and re-examine the Liberal Party of Canada's position. And if we go back and if we're trying to recapture our identity and coming up with a new identity, I think it starts by going back to our roots and our heritage. Western civilization in general was founded on Christian principles. And that we have an amazing heritage in this country of being grounded in biblical principles and Christian principles. When I travel to Ottawa and I see the Parliament buildings, in the past, we engraved many scriptures on the walls of this country. And because of that, we have been a prosperous nation, I believe. And the entire Western civilization has prospered because that we have put God first in our country. And when I've done some research on, some of the early prime ministers of Canada that were liberals, they said some very strong comments that laid a vision for Canada that was based on righteousness and godly values. And I think deep down Canadians do want that back. We've experimented with just dropping all of our heritage and our beliefs. And it's time, I think, for the Liberal Party of Canada to restore these core beliefs. And I want to, now that I've apologized on behalf of the Liberal Party, we actually want to invite people back to the Liberal Party. And that's what needs to happen. So we invite the people that have left. We invite the right back. One thing I heard from a citizen recently that was a lifetime Liberal Party voter, what they said to me was, I've had it. When they implemented the capital gains tax, that was the final straw. I've never voted Conservative before, but now I am. It is time that we invite people back to the Liberal Party. Now, I want to go through a few of the policies that I would institute immediately if I was the next Liberal Party of Canada leader. We've all seen in the news what's happening in the United States and the new president of the United States, his threats to impose tariffs. So I believe that obviously that would be the first thing on the agenda, is to meet with President Donald Trump on behalf of Canada and work through the issues that he has addressed. Similarly to the president, I don't have a political background. I have an executive master's of business and a project management professional designation. And I believe those skills will help me negotiating with another businessman on what we can do with our countries. I think he's reasonable, and I think we can come to an understanding. Our countries love each other. We have families, all of us have family on both sides of the border. And I actually do believe we are entering the most prosperous time in human history. This is a great time to be alive. I'm very excited, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I think the future is going to be amazing with our dealings with the United States under this new, as the whole world is throwing off this woke alt-left, political situation. The adults are coming back to the table all over the world, and we're putting an end to some of the nonsense. And I believe we're going to get along very well together. So that will be the first order of business. Clearly, when you look at the issue of affordability, I have a few points that I would do. First of all, as a citizen, I've been watching, and I love a lot of the things that Pierre Poilievre is saying. He said things like, axe the tax. As a citizen, and my friends, as we've been talking, yeah, that's a great idea, but does it go far enough? Axe the tax. How about we go farther? What does it look like to axe maybe part of the income tax? Could we help Canadians? When I was growing up, how many times somebody has said to me, there's no point in me working overtime because they just tax me even more. So why bother? And I don't think that is good for our country. We want to incentivize people to work hard. So if I was Prime Minister, I would immediately get the accountants of the country, the accountants in the government, and say, show me, just like I would in a business, show me what it looks like. What if we did shave the income tax by 25 or 50%? There was a time in history when before, I think it was World War II, there was no income tax, and we got along just fine. So then someone might say, well, Mike, Michael, that's, if we cut the income tax, then how are we going to have revenue? Well, that's when, what do you do in your personal life when you have a money problem? Yes, you can spend less, but the other way is to make more. So I would immediately instruct the accountants of this country and the government, show me a plan. If we were to stop breaking the backs of working Canadians, how could we raise the revenue? We have one of the most amazing countries from a natural resources point of view in the whole world. Is there a way that we could replace that missing revenue by cutting the income tax and extract more natural resources? I don't know, but we need to have a conversation about this, because everyone is suffering, and the current administration, all they're doing is adding more tax burdens onto Canadians. And I just don't understand why that's the only way that this can be done. We all saw the idea of cutting the HST for a couple of months, and I don't think anyone really liked that idea. So it was a good start. What does it look like? Why not cut the whole thing? I don't know. Maybe that's unrealistic, but let's have a conversation about that. Can we cut it in half? Clearly cuts need to come from somewhere, because people are demoralized in our country. They can't afford things. I don't need to go into it because you all see it every day on the news, how bad it is and how difficult it is to pay the bills. This needs to be a national emergency. If we're going to impose the Emergencies Act on something, maybe that's what we should be imposing it on. Treat it very seriously, like an emergency. We need to come up with new great ideas in this country, because whatever we're doing is not working very well. So, I don't understand every law and the reason every regulation exists, but let's just look at, okay, we have a housing crisis. Okay, what if somebody owns a bunch of acres on land and they have some children? Why shouldn't they be able to build multiple houses on their land? I hear that all the time from Canadians. Some people say, well, I can't build a house for my son or daughter because I'm only allowed to, in my area, only have one house on my property. And I understand maybe in an urban situation that's reasonable, but when you go into the country, why not? we need to have a conversation about that. The adults need to come back to the table, and we can solve. I believe our country's full of amazing, intelligent people. I believe that we can solve some of these problems. Next, I would say, I've heard the term moratoriums, and I think there's a few things that which basically to the average person, it means pausing something for a bit and rethinking it. So there's three things I would do immediately if I was the Prime Minister of Canada. First of all, I truly believe immigration is amazing. I have friends from all over the world. The whole world has come to Canada. That's great. But it seems like everyone agrees that the rates of immigration have increased so much. And as a project manager, as a PMP, it appears there wasn't a great plan for that. And because of that, we're having a housing crisis. The prices of houses and rent have gone through the roof. Well, Economics 101 talks about supply and demand. If you increase the demand by, increasing the immigration by millions and millions of people without thinking through what that means, then you have a problem, and the supply goes down and the price goes up. Now, that's why I think we should have this moratorium on immigration, but not forever. As I fly across the country and you look out your window, you've all done it. Have you noticed how much empty land there is? I don't know the complete stats, but we may have more empty land than any other country, in the Western world. So I think if we paused, made a plan, and then we're a little more strategic about immigration, we probably could reinstate it, and it could be good for everybody. The next thing as the Prime Minister of Canada, that I would do after speaking with Canadians, what do they want? The second thing is, let's talk about foreign aid. When we are in, it's probably not, too alarmist to say, we have some urgent emergencies going on in our country right now. So why are we sending foreign aid all over the world? I don't think that's necessarily, a conservative idea. It's, the leader of the opposition uses the term common sense conservative. Well, we also need some common sense liberals. And I think for a season, we need to pause foreign aid and look internally at our country. Maybe we could shave down the taxes, which are astronomically too high, if we did stop worrying about things all over the world and worry about Canada first. The next thing I would put a moratorium on immediately is the MAID program. Someone showed me a report that said 1 in 20 deaths last year in Canada was because of the MAID program. It was initiated by the government. That's a problem. 1 in 20 Canadians died because of the MAID program. It probably started with somewhat of a compassionate heart behind it. You have someone that's in horrible pain on their deathbed. That was probably the first domino to fall. But if you see what has happened in Canada, the wheels have fallen off the bus. Other countries are even looking at us going, well, we better pause and walk this back in our country, because look what the Canadians are doing. When I was growing up, you'd see on bus stops, you see on milk cartons, the kids' help phone number, 1-800 kids help phone, or whatever it was. If you're having problems, and you were having bad thoughts, you could go get help. Look what's happening in Canada right now. If you're that person, they're offering you death. Who thought that was a good idea? The wheels have fallen off the bus, and we need to walk it back and put a moratorium immediately on the MAID program. And the adults need to come back to the table and decide what's going to happen next with that program. Next, I would say, let's talk about some repeals. If I was the next Liberal Party of Canada leader, and the members that are going to vote for this, if they are looking for a new direction, and they are looking to hit the reset button and restore Liberals back to the center, and we can fix the polls and invite Liberal members to come back to our party, then here's some ideas I have that we should all be talking about. We should be having a national conversation on these repeals. So the first one is, I can't even believe, it seems very ridiculous that we are not allowed to share news on our social media. This is not the Soviet Union. That's what it feels like, and that's what my friends feel like it is. And I have friends from every political background and every party. Nobody thinks that was a good idea. I'm not sure what we were what the government was trying to do by blocking news being shared, but it's absolutely ridiculous and it needs to end immediately. The next thing I would repeal is I would take Bill C-4, and we need to repeal. I haven't read the whole thing, but there's aspects of it that should never have happened. For example, I am a person of faith, and I have many friends that are Christian leaders across the country, and are pastors and counselors and leaders of ministries. And they're telling me that whether, I haven't read the whole bill, but whether or not it says this directly, there's a perception of what Bill C-4 means. And what they believe is they are not allowed to counsel people. They're afraid to if someone comes in their office and is struggling with their identity and not sure about who they are or what they believe, and they want to have a conversation, these counselors and pastors are petrified to bring it up because they think they're going to go to jail. In fact, I know many people, and some of you may know also, people that have left the country because of the direction that Canada is going in. That's unacceptable. And I would, under my leadership, I would invite them back too. If a pastor wants to give counseling on someone that's confused and struggling with who they are or what they are or how they feel about themselves, they should be protected and given free rein to counsel as they see fit. If they want to counsel from a biblical perspective or some other perspective, they should be encouraged to do that and allowed. You know, the government should really be suggesting things, not telling us how to micromanage every aspect of our lives. The next thing I would immediately repeal is, well, most of the globalist ties that we have. So I love what Donald Trump did yesterday in the United States, removing America from the WHO. I would immediately remove Canada from these affiliations where we're sending millions of dollars and they're telling us what to do and how to do things in our country. We are a very proud people. I grew up, in the public school system, and I heard about what we did in the different wars. We are the best. I think we're the best country in the world. And I think we can be restored to that, but we don't need people all over we don't need to give our sovereignty away to people in Europe or people in the WEF or people, on non-elected boards all over the world. I don't know who these people are. And as a citizen, I can't stand it. So I would just revoke, repeal, whatever words you want to use. Let's examine them. If there's an organization that, maybe something like the Red Cross, I don't know much about them, but maybe they are doing some great disaster relief work. I like the work that organizations like the Samaritan's Purse are doing. I had a tour of their facility. They mobilize and deploy hospitals all over the world in disaster zones. Now, that's the kind of things Canada should be getting involved with. But as far as, all these organizations and these foreign leaders telling us what we're going to do in our country, that's going to end immediately. The next thing I would repeal and end immediately is any kind of woke funding and any DEI funding. It will be we will return to a merit-based system. And I'm not saying this because Donald Trump said this yesterday. These are things I've been thinking for a long time. And, he's just representing what most people think anyways. This was a very big mistake. And I believe, yes, it definitely should return to a merit-based system. When I was growing up, I heard this, we've all heard the speech from Martin Luther King Jr., that people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I thought that's where we had kind of moved to in Western civilization. But we've sort of forgotten that speech and are implementing all of these DEI initiatives, and it's not working. Companies are rejecting it. We've all seen the stories. I think Facebook, Meta is rejecting it. Countries are rejecting it all over the world. It was a bad idea, and it was a mistake. And I apologize on behalf of the Liberal Party of Canada, as a member of the Liberal Party of Canada, and as a person that wants to be as a candidate for the Liberal Party Canada. I just want to apologize. Sometimes, things sometimes start as a good idea, and then it just takes a life of its own. The next thing that I would address, especially, this is more specifically to the Liberal Party of Canada, is I would repeal the restrictions on having pro-life candidates in the Liberal Party. That's not one of the things that started as a good idea. That's a very bad idea. We've forgotten our identity of what the Liberal Party of Canada is supposed to be. We are great. We have an amazing background historically, and we forgot what this great institution is about. And if you want to be a centrist party, why would you put barriers to entry from people on the right? And this is not a fringe belief. This isn't something crazy. Like, many Canadians would consider themselves pro-life. Drive through any city in Canada, it's filled with churches. Christians are probably, I don't know the stats, but we may be the largest people group in the country. People that believe in God. And why on earth would the Liberal Party of Canada think it's a good idea to not want them in our party? We're a centrist party. And I want to invite the right back. I want to, you want to know something? When people found out that I was running for the Liberal Party leadership, somebody said in one of my groups, they said, "I do believe in miracles. I'm now a member of the Liberal Party," so that they can help vote for me to get in and contribute. Is that what we really want to? Is that what we want to be as a Liberal Party? A group that anyone that has these other beliefs, that they don't want anything to do with us, and they think it's a miracle. No, that's not what the Liberal Party is supposed to be, and it doesn't represent the majority of Canadians. And if you want proof, go look at the Nanos polls. Lifetime Liberals are jumping ship, like I said before, like a ship on fire, rats jumping off a ship. It doesn't need to be that way, and we're sorry. We're going to fix it. I think everybody in the Liberal leadership knows we're in big trouble. I just don't think they know how to shift gears and juke So I hope I can bring that to them. You know, in the business world, when things aren't going well in a project, if I'm managing a project as a project manager, if it's not going well, you re-examine it and you make a change. It's okay. And it's okay for the Liberals to realize what they've done wrong, apologize to the nation, and collect themselves and get back on track. And you know what? Historically, we have seen that happen. Forgive me if I, get a wrong fact at some point, during this, but I believe it was Kim Campbell's administration that I think it was the Conservative Party or the PCs. It dropped to something like 2 seats. But they bounced back. You regroup. You realize what you did wrong. You admit it. You collect yourselves and you regroup. And I want to bring that to Canada. And we'll find great leaders all across the country. When I was just a citizen and I wasn't thinking about running, so I always wonder to myself, do we really have to pick? Do we have to settle for bad leaders? Sometimes you look at the leaders and you go, is that the best we can do? And to be honest, I didn't vote for 15 years. I was kind of like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Why bother? What's the point? It's too corrupt. One person can't really make a difference. These are the things I used to believe. I think God changed my heart and said, no, stop whining about all the problems in your country. Why don't you try to fix it? So I changed everything that I was doing, and now I'm getting involved. And what if good people did get involved? Some people are like, what you're doing is a little crazy. Yeah, well, what if all the good guys did something crazy this year and tried? So that's what I'm doing. There's a few new policies I want to talk about that I would institute, or at least start the conversation as the Prime Minister. And I don't know, based on what's happening in the current events, is that going to be 3 weeks? Is that going to be 3 months? Is that going to be till October? I don't know. None of us know. So with the time I would have as the Prime Minister until the next election, here are some things I would want to start the conversation on. Charter schools. The big idea there is some people don't like the current system. There's some young men I know that they can't stand sitting in a school all day. Well, why shouldn't they be allowed to go to, a construction high school? Where, yeah, they're doing some of the reading, writing, and math, but maybe 70% of the day they're actually working on the trade that their father has and they want to follow up with in their career. What if you have an athlete? What if you have a young lady that's, the fastest sprinter in Canada? And what if she wants to go to more of an athletic high school? There's so many restrictions right now on, there's no choices. There's no innovative spirit in the educational system. So imagine it was an open market. Why does the government need to be, telling everyone what they're going to do? If you want to send your kid to a certain school, you should be allowed to do that and get the funding. And that makes a competitive situation, right? If a group of people, a group of entrepreneurs want to create an amazing school with amazing ideas, maybe this is what the conversation needs to be. Maybe, 30% needs to be reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then 70% they can focus on their trade at a young age. The next thing I would institute immediately is I would institute weekly leader meetings in Parliament, meaning I would be the first one to do it. I would sit down once a week with the leaders of the other parties. These are not our enemies. Things have gone wrong. Growing up, one of the reasons I didn't vote, to be honest, was because I saw how people acted in the House of Commons. How am I supposed to teach my children how to behave and respect people and love your neighbor as yourself when I watch the leaders treat each other so disrespectfully? It's okay to disagree on ideas, but you can do it in a reasonable, respectable, dignified way. And I just didn't see that happening. So I didn't really want anything to do with politicians. You know, they say that if you see a problem in the world, you should be the one to fix it. So that's what I would do. I would open the door if I was the prime minister and meet with all the other leaders once a week. What do you guys want to do? What are your good ideas? You know, is there something you'd like the government to do? Can we work together? As crazy as it sounds, imagine we came out of that agreeing on something altogether for the good of Canadians. And that's what's missing. And Canadians can't stand. Why is the voting rate so low? I think municipally it's 20%. I'm not sure totally what the federal rate is, but many people just have thrown the towel in. I don't think it needs to be that way. I want to offer a different path forward, not using terms like unity that don't actually, it doesn't mean anything. No, this is what it actually looks like. When the rubber meets the road, this is what it could look like. So I'd invite the other leaders once a week. We could sit down with our cabinet. Bring in your cabinet, your shadow cabinets. Let's talk together, because it is about Canadians. It's about my neighbors and my family members that don't agree with me on politics. Okay, we still have to live together and work together. We can still argue in the House of Commons, but we should be able to have some meetings. I would encourage also my cabinet to be meeting. I'm setting the example. Now I expect them to do the same thing. I want you guys to meet with your counterparts. If you're the Minister of Finance, go meet with the opposition Minister of Finance. Go meet with the other shadow cabinet members, if that's the right term. And then come back with a report and a plan. I would be expecting my cabinet to have these meetings. I would immediately also, as Prime Minister, launch a few investigations into the homelessness problem. I don't believe it needs to be as bad as it is, and I think the strong people of this country, we can come together and help these people that are struggling. Everyone should have a warm place to sleep at night. And I'm sure if we put the best people in the country together on it, we can solve this problem or just help make it better. I would investigate the housing crisis and what's going on and what we can do as a government. Obviously, crime is a major problem that we need to investigate. We need to get the leaders of the country together at all levels. The chiefs of all the police. Let's have a meeting in Ottawa with everyone and figure out. We'll get the lawyers in. We'll get everyone in to decide what are some things we can immediately do to reduce the crime. There's a few long-term things I would put into place. I would expect immediately a revenue study of how we could use our resources strategically, so we don't have to break the backs of the taxpayers anymore under my leadership. I think we need a national conversation on technology. We just saw what happened yesterday in America. I think it was $500 billion commitment to an AI facility or something. We could lead the world in technology. I would have a national conversation on the preborn. I would open up the dialogue. We would talk about this again. Reasonable Canadians want to have a conversation on this. Nobody would be allowed to kill a one-day-old. And I don't actually, even amongst the pro-choice people I talk to, none of the reasonable ones want to think it's okay to end the life of a minus one-day-old baby. We need to look at what that means for Canada after the adults come back to the table. Finally, if you want to help with my bid to run for the next leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, you can go to my website, voteformichaelclark.ca. There you can sign up to be a member and support my initiative, and you can make donations there. Finally, you can pray for me, because what I'm going up against, there's a lot of people that don't like these ideas, but I think they are based in righteousness. Thank you very much for listening to this speech, and God bless Canada.